Welcome to F1 Rolling Start, the last episode of the
Final
2024 F1 season. My goodness.
What a day.
Abu Dhabi, McLaren.
McLaren.
First time winning the Constructors' Championship in almost 26 years.
Yeah. Last time they were champions was before Lando was alive.
And most definitely before Piastri was alive.
Oh, dude. Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. I think Zach Brown was racing Porsches. And Andreas Seidel was finishing up his degree in aerodynamics.
And yet here they are.
Yeah.
Solidly our champions this year.
I want to, at one point in my life, experience in person the Zach Brown, like, excited scream.
Oh, where he breaks your ribs? Because he's...
Yeah, like when Danny Ricciardo won and he's like yelling and slapping people and just like punching poor girls on the McLaren team and just...
This guy is like just a bull. But he's, and we've talked about this before, he's the American in F1, like the genuine American
100%.
energy. He brings it. Yeah, he was talking to Ted Kravitz right after the race, and Ted's asking him how he's doing and if he wants to say anything to the folks in the factory, and he was just lit. He was on one, and you want to see that energy, and it's the American.
100%. Zach Brown brought F1 to America.
Yeah,
he brought tons of America sponsorship. McLaren has become one of the most well-marketed teams out there, period. But all of that aside, I just can't really comprehend the fact that this team a year ago couldn't even get through a testing lap without their brakes overheating.
Yeah.
And 1 year later, they are now winning the 2024 Constructors Championship.
Yeah,
that's huge for
defies
F1.
the imagination. But it shows what's possible when you have the right people in the right roles, and you've got the right energy and resources and imagination and creativity and all that kind of stuff. And McLaren is just this example of a team that can turn it around. They don't need 5 years to turn it around.
Yes.
It did in a year. Like, that's incredible when you think about that. I mean, Piastri was talking after the race and was just like, this is incredible.
100%.
My second season in, and
100%.
we're already, champions. And so, yeah, I mean, it just shows how quick things can turn around. And I mean, the equivalent is what? Williams?
Well, I was thinking about this. The interesting part for me is thinking through who could be somebody in this area. You can't really say Williams because Williams doesn't have near the amount of funding that McLaren has. Like Zach Brown has the marketing background,
but Williams is a championship team
100%,
like McLaren.
I would say that's true. They definitely have the pedigree like McLaren has. And even saying McLaren hasn't won a Constructors Championship in 26 years feels almost wrong. Like, we should fact check that. But no,
it's true.
That is 100% true.
Yes.
I think the closest comparison for me, at least, is Aston Martin. In the modern F1 era, what team has had as much clout, funding, champions?
Great colors, too.
Great colors.
God.
Man, they have a good-looking car. Can't go around a track. But it's a good-looking car. And I would say what McLaren has proved is that it's not just about money.
Yes.
It's about the right drivers.
Yes.
And it's about the right people.
Yes.
And it's about the right leadership, bringing that team to the front of the field.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think Aston is a good team to compare. Yeah, let's dive into Aston later on because I've got thoughts. Now that you brought that up.
Thoughts. Let's talk Lando. So he clinches a victory single-handedly in the Abu Dhabi race, wins the Constructors.
Yeah, I mean,
why, Ben? Why? What did your boy do this weekend? What did four-time world champion Max Verstappen do this weekend?
Well, he made a move of a world champion. That one, said Oscar. No, Max, who is going to be a new dad. Congrats, Max. He freaking dove down on Piastri in the first corner.
Yeah.
Bumps him, spins him out. Piastri essentially is out of contention at that point. There's no way that he's going to get back in. And then Piastri later on gets a 10-second penalty, which, sidebar, what the hell is with all these 10-second penalties all of a sudden?
Oh, I have something for
Okay,
that.
all right, we'll come back to that. So Piastri's out of it because he's got this 10-second penalty he's got to serve, and then Max knocked him out. So it really is on the shoulders of Lando Norris.
And Lando thought, okay, well, I've got signs, and then, Leclerc's down in P19 or something.
Well, he made up like 11 places on the first lap.
Literally.
Unreal.
Is P8 by the end of the first lap. So now Norris is like, okay, if I do anything wrong, if there's a safety car, which I don't know, circa 2021, there could be
if I
on the last freaking lap.
Or blink.
It's called a race car driving, Tai. And like it's all to go. But to Lando's credit, he was freaking legit, dude.
Yeah.
He was cool. He was collected. He was managing the race. I mean, he wasn't miles ahead. He was 5 seconds ahead, which is at some point, mostly 4s.
Yeah, 4s, 5s.
That's not a crazy margin.
Do you remember, and this was in this season, when we were getting on to Lando because he would always lose the lead at the first corner?
Yes.
Multiple times. He couldn't hold on to the lead of the race, and that was the one thing that was his kind of bane, was he couldn't hold on to it. My question for you is, will we look back at this race as a defining moment for Lando and how he handled pressure? Because how he handled it this race, again, is radically different than how he's handled pressure and leading in other races. Do you feel like this was significant in that way?
Yeah, I feel like we will look back on this season. And even, honestly, as you asked that question, I have to remind myself that Lando won his first race this
season. It's been a long season.
It's been a long season.
But that's stunning to think about.
And McLaren did not think that they were going to be. They hoped that they would be fighting for the
as
victory.
One does.
But they did not expect to be where they were.
Yeah.
Lando got on top of his qualifying woes that he struggled with in 2023.
Yep.
He had, I think, 9 pole positions this season. And that's massive.
Huge.
He nailed that. He started to race at the top of the field, and that's where he struggled. He struggled under the pressure. He struggled under
wasn't used to
the
it.
Aggressiveness. Exactly. And I think this year he had people behind him, and he kept them there.
Yeah. No, he learned how to lead this year. Which, again, just as you were saying that, I had forgotten he had won his first race this year until you brought it up. I was like, oh.
I think he won 5.
Yeah. I want to say it was 5 races he's won this year. But McLaren was really surprised by their pace. They were surprised by their competitiveness. And so it wasn't just Lando that had to learn how to lead. It was the team.
Mm-hmm.
It was McLaren that had to learn how to lead. And we talked about that in multiple episodes where we said, hey, these guys were scrappy. They would take risks before. But when you're leading, that's the wrong call.
Yes.
You don't be scrappy. You don't take risks because it loses you the race. And so I think what I'm walking away from this season thinking about McLaren is that these guys are contenders.
Yeah.
They have stepped into a new level within the sport. And again, you could say they rediscovered their championship ways from a couple decades ago because they used to win, and then they had this spout where they couldn't. But they have found themselves back at the front. They're punching their weight. They're leading. They're making the right calls on the track, off the track. They've somehow found just this kind of incredible blend of like the best driver pairing.
Right.
The
best driver pairing.
I mean, really,
bonkers.
Really, the best leadership pairing when you think about it. The best environment for this team. And so when I think back to this season, the entire season is a pivotal moment for them as a team where they're at the front now and other teams now have to come and catch them next year.
100%. I agree with you. And I think today we saw it in the race. You have Norris leading. Piastri, for all intents and purposes, can do nothing for them.
No, yeah, he was out. He's done.
You've got Norris coming into the pits. You've got 2 Ferraris behind him. And they do a 2-second flat pit stop.
2-second flat.
Nailed it.
That's perfect.
Absolutely nailed it. Completely under pressure. You had them throughout the race asking Lando questions like, hey, if you've got fresh tires behind Carlos, can you overtake him? And Lando's coming on going, yep, I can do it.
Yep.
They were in the pocket in Abu Dhabi. And I thought today, I was like, wow, we could see them come out of the gates next year in 2025. And if they have the car, they now have the team and the infrastructure to back it up.
They do.
The most impressive thing to me is that they won the constructors and neither of their drivers did. Which says to me, the team can do it again.
Yes.
The drivers, that's another another conversation.
The Drivers' Championship, that'll be something that I would genuinely be surprised if Lando or Piastri wins the Drivers' Championship next year. But I expect the team to win the constructors.
Right.
Even though I think Ferrari will really be even more in contention, I think it potentially would even be tighter. When we get to Ferrari, we can talk about them and my thoughts there too. But high expectations for the team for next year.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. So Will Buxton, love me some Will Buxton.
Dude,
love it.
What a guy.
This season, I've really become the F1 TV fan. Like, I've actually switched. Like,
from Sky to F1.
I've gone from Sky to F1. I freaking love. I still watch Crofty for the main race, but I love. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to nerd out about the F1 TV, but y'all are freaking crushing it.
I think most of our fans are F1 nerds at this point. So.
That's true. But I do think I completely lost the plot about what I was talking about.
Will Buxton, F1
yes,
TV.
Will Buxton. Okay, so Will Buxton thinks that Max tagged Piastri because Max was throwing the gauntlet down and saying, just so you know, when you come for my title next year, this is what you can expect to drive. He thinks that Piastri will be Max's biggest title fighter next year.
Interesting.
Rather than Norris, rather than Leclerc, rather than Hamilton,
Why?
rather than Russell, rather than Antonelli, he thinks it would be Piastri. He thinks because of Piastri's, well, I guess form, but also the investment that McLaren has in him. We saw that this year. They did not pull Lando as my number 1 driver.
They didn't, no.
They are looking at Oscar. They invested a ton of money by flicking Danny to get Oscar in there.
Oh, yeah.
They risked lawsuits by going after him when he was driving for Alpine. They are saying he is our future. And for all intents and purposes, his second year in F1, it's a pretty damn good future.
Well, I mean, he was winning. He won this year.
100%.
How many years?
Both on merit.
Yeah.
And as a kind of slap in the face.
I mean, how many years did it take Lando to win his first?
Exactly my point.
Piastri's,
So that's, I should say exactly Will's point. I don't believe this.
No, I mean, it's hard not to like project without talking about other teams, but you know, I'll speak more about this, but I think Chuck is kind of a dark horse
100%
as a contender for the championship next year.
Yeah.
I know Hammy's going to be in a new team, new environment.
Yep.
But the dude had an unreal recovery drive, and gosh. Ferrari's got a winning car.
Yes.
And potentially even more so by next year. I mean, I would think Lando has a lot more confidence now. Like Piastri, we saw him win this year, but we also saw Lando towards the end emerge.
Yep.
As
100%.
The contender, as kind of the front man of the duo. And he outperformed Piastri, even though Piastri only has been here for 2 seasons. So that's really interesting for Will to say that. It's Max just being like, hey, you want me, this is what it's going to look like. I don't know if that's actually what happened.
Do you think that Piastri could take it to Max, or do you think it would be Lando out of the 2 McLaren drivers?
Piastri's just stone cold and emotionless, and you kind of have to be to not get rustled by Max.
100%. He's kind of like the Elon Musk of the F1 field. You know what I mean? Like he's just kind of very matter of fact.
Yeah,
he's very based.
Yeah, just so I mean, I think between the two of them, they would do it in different ways. I don't know which one would do it more successfully.
Right.
I think Lando has more confidence, and he has won more races, and I think that he is going to go in the next season being smarter because he's tussled more with Max than Piastri has.
I also think he gets more airtime, which I think plays into how much people think about you because of his personality. Like he has more personality than Piastri. Like Piastri hops on the camera. It's like watching a wet rag talk. It's just kind of like whatever.
Dude, love me some Piastri, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's probably plays into some of it. I do wonder though about McLaren. I guess my thought as I was watching Zach Brown hold that trophy up and the champagne flying all over the place, or is it really champagne? Because isn't alcohol illegal in Abu Dhabi?
I don't know, actually. I don't think so, because I heard all the commentators being like, "Oh, champagne must be really good."
Well, that's because, they were also saying they were going to get trashed that night, but I think it is illegal. I know that in some of those countries in the Middle East, illegal. They keep the yachts. The international line is so close that they keep the yachts right off of the international waters.
Gotcha.
And so they just kind of take a dinghy out, get plastered, come back in.
Fair enough.
So to each is known. Anyway, that was a crazy tangent.
I mean, we're drinking the champagne and beer. So
we're drinking champagne and beer for the end of the season. Okay, so my question in regards, as I'm watching Zach with the trophy, Lando wiping tears away as the British anthem is playing, thinking to myself, will we ever hear the American flag?
Hell no.
Not anytime soon. And I'm only able to think one thing.
What is it?
Is McLaren a one-hit wonder, or are they the new Red Bull?
That's a great question. I do not think they're a one-hit wonder, purely because this has been a long time coming. So they're not like an Aston who had an incredible year and dipped back down into like pure mediocrity. They have been building for a really long time. They have struggled. Obviously, last year, at the beginning of the year, their car was really struggling. I think McLaren's here to stay. They've got, like I mentioned before, the right team, the right drivers, the right resources now that they've won the constructors, even more so. But they have a car that works at all circuits. Full stop.
100%.
And so this season showed that. It wasn't a one-hit wonder is someone who
so true.
Is strong on one circuit, weak at another. Their car, they found a way to get that car working every single circuit. And so I think they're here to stay. And I think they're the ones who everyone now has to find a way to beat.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
That's my thoughts. I think that we're looking at the new bad boys of the paddock.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, Red Bull has lost that title.
Red Bull has kind of, I don't even know if they've realized it. They've slipped into the dude at the party that's still trying to be cool. But he's just kind of a little old. And I think McLaren is, I mean, they're hot to trot. I mean, Norris has got some big dog energy around the paddock. Piastri is like, do you remember I don't know if you watched the American Olympics. Oh, not the American Olympics. The Olympics in Paris. The American gymnastics team.
Oh,
there was like all of these dudes, and then this one guy who only did I think it's the horse. I don't know what it is, but he was like this real scrawny dude, and the rest of them were like buff, and like that's Piastri. Piastri's like the scrawny guy, but then just gets there and gets the gold, like just nails it. And I think like, we're gonna see some crazy stuff coming from them next year. The team can do it. They know that they can do it now, and now the drivers are like, okay, it's my turn.
Dude, they're here to stay, and they've got all the elements. And I think that comparison, and again, Red Bull fan, I'm a Max fan. I think you are right. They have lost their edge.
Yeah.
And I don't think they realized it because Max won. But as a team, clearly, they have lost their edge. And that, I think, will become even more apparent next year.
I agree. You're going to get a nice taste of what it's felt like to be a Mercedes fan over the last few years.
You had so many years. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad.
I remember back in my day. Okay, so we go from the top of the field to the bottom of the field, and the bottom of the field was kick. Bottas's
it was so meta. It was so meta.
Ended in the pits. Both literally and figuratively.
Yes.
No, what a crap season for Bottas.
But I mean, it was nice. He says, thanks to everyone as he's ready to go. And then there's a moment where he locks up and slams into the other driver who's also not coming back, Magnussen, and then hobbles back, and his tire is like half the size.
Bro,
it's somehow like just scrunched.
So incredible.
And I was like, this is potentially one of the most meta things I've ever seen, where it's just like, and this was his season.
100%.
And this was Kick's season.
Yeah.
It was just atrocious. My question to you regarding Kick is, and I'm going to use Bottas's phrase, what's next for Kick? Not Bottas. Obviously, we know he's transitioned, but for the team, what can we expect from them next season?
I think we're looking at a Williams. I think we're looking at Benito coming in, leading the charge there. You've got Bortoleto coming in as well. And when people come in, it takes time.
Yeah.
I don't, I remember listening to Beyond the Grid with Otmar.
Yeah.
Right before Alpine fired him.
Yeah. It was like an unfortunate timing.
Him saying it takes time, which, by the way, they're exactly where he said they would be. They're exactly where they said.
Otmar.
Exactly where. And so I think next year it's the end of the regs. They had a front wing that everyone is praising them on. Guan Yu Zhou ended in 13th. And
there's like 4.
That's great for them.
Yeah, it is.
Because they are essentially what McLaren was last year, just never improved. They just never got better.
Yeah.
And everything they did this year did not work until one race ago. Literally the second to last race. 24 friggin' races.
Unreal.
And I mean, I don't have much to say. The only thing that's really happening is that Bottas, there's like a rumor that he might go into competitive cycling or become Mercedes.
The reserve driver. Well, why can't he do both?
He probably can.
I mean, they could be like, hey, we don't need you these next 5
How much
weekends.
track time did Mick Schumacher get this year? Oh, 0.
Yeah.
Absolutely none.
Mick would just
Number
try
47 is gone. Goodbye.
He would just try to keep us or keep himself in our like consciousness by like standing next to Toto whenever they had the shot at the beginning of the
Literally.
race.
And Toto's
like, Mick, get out of here. None of us care.
100%.
You could be like in some yacht somewhere. And
Toto's looking at him going, dude, you split a car in half at Monaco. I don't even know how you do that. No, you are not getting in one of my Mercedes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have much else to say for Kick. It was an abysmal season.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that they would score points this weekend so that I could rub it in your face again, but that didn't happen. And I already have my $40. You have your $40. So I'm good to go.
$10 for every point.
$10 for every point. Not Mercedes, Ferrari.
Ferrari.
Wow.
What?
Chuck.
It was really interesting, and I don't want to get to Mercedes until we get to them, but the two drivers who had incredible recovery drives, Chuck and Hammy, and they're going to be our driver lineup for next year.
I didn't put that together.
Right? They both came from the back of the grid, had incredible drives. And again, it was one of these moments where Ferrari, they're fighting McLaren. They go into this final race with the possibility to actually take the championship for the first time since, what is it?
2008.
2008? Obviously, that's not how it works out. But there's a moment where the drivers, they do what they need to do. Chuck comes all the way to P3.
From P19 to
P2. Like, these guys are applying enormous pressure on Lando. Like, one slip up and it's over. They win.
One safety car and it would have been over.
Absolutely. So, I mean, they did their job. I think the one question that I have about this race is, do you think Ferrari should have attempted some kind of switch, some kind of Hail Mary just to try to spook or rustle McLaren to try to get them to come in and do a pit stop? Do you think they should have tried something towards the end?
They could have. I think they realized that they didn't have the pace.
Yeah,
on McLaren.
They couldn't catch Lando.
Was faster all weekend.
Yeah,
throughout the entire weekend they were faster. I think even at the end of the race, Carlos could have pitted and gotten fastest lap, but he wouldn't have caught Lando. There's no way.
No.
He wasn't going to gain a second or more a lap like Hamilton was on Russell. That just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, what I loved about Ferrari this weekend is it's just the continual story of, did they make the right decision staying with Chuck instead of Sainz? Because I think Sainz, technically, you're the data guy, so you can confirm this.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
He did not score as high as Leclerc, but he was pretty flipping close. They both had an amazing season.
They really did.
Ferrari did not lose because of either of their drivers.
No, Chuck was in third at the end with 356 points. Carlos was in fifth with 290. So
Close,
about a 66 point.
That's probably
difference.
One of the closest driver pairings out of all of them.
Yeah, one of them.
My thought in regards to Ferrari is that they didn't lose this because of number one, you never lose it in the last race.
No,
it's very rare that ever happens.
It was way closer last season between them and Merck.
Correct. It was 1 point.
Yeah,
it was
literally
insane. I think Ferrari will look back and say we had a really good season. I think what they'll also look back and say is we lost this in Spain when we brought that upgrade, and it did not correlate with what the wind tunnel was telling us. It did not correlate with CFD, and we crashed the boat.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's never won or lost in a single race, although 2021. But Ferrari, I am really interested in your question. Is Chuck the guy moving forward? Obviously, Hamilton, they're bringing him in, but Hamilton's at the end of his career. And this is going to be the last team he's with.
100%.
So this season, I know Chuck finished ahead of Sainz, but there's something about how Sainz raced this season.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about how he just pedaled to the metal.
Yes.
Just went all out. And there's like a chip he's got on his shoulder.
Yes.
And I think it was because they were letting him go, and we knew that, and he knew that from the beginning of the season. But he's always kind of had that because he's always gotten let go by teams.
Yes, 100%.
And so he's always raced with this chip on his shoulder. And Chuck's been like the dream boy for Ferrari since day one.
Longest Ferrari contract in the history of Ferrari.
Yeah, and like he was the youngest Ferrari driver, I believe, under contract. And so
he's the golden boy of Ferrari.
He's been the golden boy. He hasn't really had this like struggle that Sainz has had.
No.
And so part of me, like, again, next year is gonna tell if they made the right decision to stay with Chuck. But part of me like wishes they would have picked Sainz.
Well, here's the thing about Sainz for me. He's got grit.
Yes.
It's not. Yes. He's not as good a qualifier as Leclerc.
No.
But when I think about the current state of Formula One and who the current world champion is, and I think about somebody going elbows out with Max Verstappen, I'd put all my money in my pocket and your pocket on Sainz, not Leclerc. And I got like $12 in my back pocket. He's got that grit where he's going to go, dude, put me on the wall. I'll take you with me.
Yep.
He's got that,
does.
Monza 2021, Hamilton. I'm going to let you, okay, if you want to go over it, that's fine.
Yep.
Go over the sausage curbs.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Sainz, he's got it, dude. He knows Max. He used to be Max's teammate. But he also
and they had beef.
They did. And this is the thing too, is hardship hardens you as a person.
That's so true. That's so true.
It gives you an edge that the easy way can never grant you. Wow, that's so meta for my life right now too, but that's a separate thing.
I was like, wait, we're transcending borders, Ben.
Ben, keep it together. No, but no, Sainz, again, he has had to go through some difficulty and some challenge. He got the boot for Danny Rick.
Yeah.
He got knocked out, right? He's been the guy who teams have looked at as their second driver. And the guy
he got the boot
performs.
For Alonso. He got the boot for Danny Rick.
Dude,
dude's been booted.
This has been his MO. And remember when they first announced that? He freaking came back and won Australia.
Yes.
Like, this is the kind of, after his freaking appendix exploded, right? So this is where, like, this season, I think, has been defining for McLaren, but it's also been defining for Sainz.
Yeah, 100%.
I look back at the season and say, this guy showed up.
Yeah.
And was like, I don't freaking care that I just got my appendix out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and I'm going to freaking win. Even though my team, once again, is booting me for someone better.
Yeah. And I think this season, my respect for Sainz has exploded.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm here for him.
Yeah.
I think he's a great driver. I'm super excited he's still on the grid. I wish he was at a better team, because it looks like the only time Williams has a chance to do anything is at the 2026 regs. And excuse me, that in and of itself is a roll of the dice.
No, I mean, I'm happy he's still here. Really bummed it's at Williams.
Yeah.
Just because of the roller coaster that team has been through. He is deserving of a top field team, and he didn't get that.
I agree. It was a great weekend for them. I mean, they did 2 and 3. So they out of all of the teams collectively, they scored the most points this weekend.
They did.
And that was phenomenal for them. I just think next year for the Scarlet Red is a little up in the air. It's uncharted territory. Hamilton was sitting in his cockpit at the end of his race, taking in his words, the last time I will ever be in a Mercedes cockpit.
Yeah.
For the last, 13 years? He's been at that team.
12 or 13 years, yeah.
He's going to go to a car. He's never driven a Ferrari powered car. He's never driven a Ferrari aerodynamically set up car.
Yeah.
He's never worked with any of those engineers. He has a brand new race engineer. He's never worked in these conditions ever. There's going to be a learning curve. I don't care how good you are, how confident you are, how much you mentally prepare, or how much time you spend over the winter break getting to know people. That first race weekend, it's unlikely that you're going to come out the gates.
Yeah. I mean, that's really fair. I was thinking about this because I know last episode I was talking about Hamilton and Ferrari really being contenders, I think, for the constructors, as they were this year. But I've been thinking more about it, and I do think you're bringing up a really good point. This isn't a Piastri situation where he's young, brand new to the sport, able to adjust quickly, able to learn quickly, able to relearn things. This is Hamilton, who's been here for a long time. And so relearning systems,
yes,
just as part of our biology, just takes longer.
Correct.
The older you are.
It's 10 years of muscle memory he's fighting. That's what you have to get to at the end of the day. Plus, you're coming off a weekend in Qatar where he says, I'm just not fast anymore in qualifying. Bro, not what Ferrari wants to hear. The Tifosi's like, what are we doing? Get rid of this guy.
The stock price is just dipping with everything that Hamilton says.
Ferrari had an amazing season. Overall, obviously, they end in P2. Two great drivers. I think the question for me, like we just talked at nauseum, did they make the right decision? Is the right driver leaving, or did they make the safe decision?
They made the safe decision, and they have from day one committed to Chuck, and that's been their guy, rightly or wrongly.
If you make your bed,
they made that decision.
You better be ready to sleep in it.
And he is the golden boy, so they're not going to deviate.
And we'll see how that turns out. But we will dip down to the bottom of the field again, and Visa, Cash App, RB, VCarb, RB, whatever the hell they want to call themselves. Thank God they're changing their name next season.
Wait, they're changing the name?
Again, because no one knows what to friggin' call them. VCarb had a weekend to forget in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
It was awful. The upgrades are not working on their car.
No.
They're using... It's like, for me, when are you going to stop picking parts out of the used Red Bull bin and build your own damn car and figure it out? Like,
well, this is the eternal struggle, the perennial question, because VCarb is the second Red Bull team.
Yeah.
They are the feeder team. They are the team that will never win a championship, and they're not there to win championships. Mm-hmm. That would be like against the very DNA of what that team is set up to do. So that, I think, is a little frustrating when you think about that. Like, every other team is here to win a championship except VCarb.
Exactly.
Because they're not designed to win a championship. No. And if they ever did, Red Bull would say, thank you, goodbye. Like, you're here you're here for us to, like, take from you.
We are a succubus on you.
Like,
develop our drivers, and when they're good enough for you to win anything consistently, we'll go ahead and take them, and then you can go ahead and grab this next driver.
Well, this is something to think about, is they are Red Bull's farm system. Now, in American sports, in baseball, for example, major league teams have farm systems. They have minor league teams that are feeders to them. If anyone listened to our podcast for any length of time, I'm from Cleveland. Cleveland has a really great farm system. We have tons of baseball farming. We have tons.
I was like, you got to clarify.
We have a really great baseball talent farm system because we have all these young guys who are really good, who will come to the majors and will, like, get in the playoffs. And then as soon as they're worth anything, New York or LA or someone else will pay them the money they want and they'll leave. But this is the weird thing about F1. Imagine now that your farm system isn't F2.
No.
It's another team in F1.
Correct.
So that other team is never, ever going to be seen as legitimate because their only purpose is for you to feed and to take the talent from.
Exactly.
Which that would be a really hard dynamic.
Yep.
To race in. That'd be a hard dynamic to like be the team principal of, when you realize, like, at any point Horner's going to come over and say, and I'm taking this guy, and I'm taking that guy. And it's just, I would hate that dynamic.
Yeah.
But that is who Visa, Cash App, Red Bull, whatever the hell their name is, that's who they are.
100%. I also wonder if Visa and Cash App are looking for a refund at this point, based off of the performance we saw this year.
Yeah. Their boy Danny's gone. They're like, hey.
Danny's gone. And apparently, allegedly, Toyota is talking to him about doing some kind of lucrative. I don't even know where that's coming from. Saw that on a couple of websites. But the reality is that it is a story of Yuki and Lawson battling it out for a Red Bull seat, not for a V-carb seat.
No, nobody. It's the team no one wants to be at, and everyone who's there is just looking over at Red Bull, being like, "Please, someone take me."
100%. They need more. I think for them next year, they need more than borrowed parts from the F1 bin. They need to do something that is different and going to differentiate themselves.
They need to. What if they broke up with Red Bull? Is that even possible?
I don't think so. But
what if another team who's desperately trying to get into F1, like they're just
Red Cadillac's coming in 2026. We have an 11th team on the grid. So I don't know who's going to, maybe Toyota could buy him, but I doubt Toyota would. Or maybe that's why Danny's linked to it, because Toyota is now looking at this going, man, Honda is in there.
Yeah.
GM's getting in. Ferrari's in. We've got Mercedes. We've got Audi now coming into it as well. Yeah. So the Audi Porsche group.
Yeah.
And so Toyota's going, what are we missing out on? They're having a ton of issues in like the 2000 in Japan, because all the young kids want to drive for Honda so that they can get a pathway through to V-carb or Red Bull like Lawson did. Yeah. And so they're looking at it going, how the heck do we like, get into this? So maybe they could come in and take them. That would be spicy. That is completely founded and funded. And we have,
but it's brilliant.
But it's a great idea. Yeah. People should listen to us.
Yes, they should.
That's what I think anyway. Okay, Mercedes. Are we back? No, but it is an incredible drive from Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton had it this weekend over Russell, period.
Yeah.
Every session, he just seemed to have the car dialed in better. It's almost like Abu Dhabi is like a special spot in his heart for him.
Yes.
And he ends up getting blundered down to the bottom of the pack.
How did you like Mag's going away present for Hamilton?
What? I was watching qualifying like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you
just a baller? Here you go.
Like, how is this dude driving with a traffic cone under his car and going to put it into the next qualifying session? Oh, no. He won't.
No,
he's out. But he drives from the back of the field and rips past Russell on the very last lap.
So quickly, none of us even saw. I mean, Hamilton, it was obviously he wasn't on the podium. He was fourth place, but it was an incredible recovery drive. And it was this kind of classic Lewis Hamilton. Like, and I know he made comments about like, I'm not fast in qualifying anymore. And obviously he's moving to Ferrari next year. We've already talked about that, but this guy's still a world champion.
100%.
And God almighty, I hope that he has an opportunity to have the car and the familiarity with it to go for it again. This guy is, they say Max is once in a generation talent. Lewis freaking Hamilton's once in a generation talent.
Yeah.
Maybe once in a couple generations talent. And so, it was just incredible to see him come back through. I have questions for you. Obviously, you're a Hamilton fan. You're a Mercedes fan. You've been for a long time. What were your thoughts watching Hamilton, his last race as Mercedes driver?
My thoughts are, does Mercedes crumble without Lewis?
I mean,
that was legitimately my thought. I was watching him go around the last lap. I was watching him do his donuts, which was sick.
Yeah.
And
good on whoever allowed that to happen.
Gosh. And I was thinking to myself, will this team flounder without Lewis? Think about where they were when he started. So he wins his world championship. And then for years after that, we entered into the Red Bull dominant phase. Vettel.
4 years, yeah.
So it's not like he went to Mercedes and immediately they were world champions. They built nothing short of an empire together.
Yeah, I mean, it's undeniable.
It's unlikely that will ever happen again. 8 constructors championships in a row. It is so unlikely that will ever happen again. It could, but it is very unlikely.
No, I mean, Red Bull couldn't do it.
No,
they haven't.
They've had a chance to do it twice, and they haven't. And so he is, for all intents and purposes, part of the foundation of the Mercedes building.
Absolutely.
And so when you remove a part of the foundation, everything gets shaky.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Well, I'm going to take this back to Cleveland. Because guess what?
I need to escape Ohio.
Guess what? I'm used to rebuilding. Mm-hmm. And sports teams saying, oh, we're entering into a rebuilding phase. You know what that means? We know what the code is for that.
We're going to suck for 10 years.
We're going to suck for 10 years.
Yes.
That's what rebuilding is just you go into, you're setting expectations. And you're saying, code, wink, wink, we're going to not be competitive for the next several years.
100%.
But we're just going to call it rebuilding. So Mercedes, they are going to be rebuilding. Now, again, they have George. George is a race winner. George is not cut from the same cloth as Lewis Hamilton, as Max Verstappen, as Fernando Alonso. He's just not. And I don't think he will ever be at that level. Full stop. Like, I love George Russell. You're not the same type of person.
Yeah.
So you're going to win some races. Yay for you. I don't think George will take Mercedes.
So you don't think George is ready to step up?
No. I don't think George is the type of driver who is going to lead Mercedes to a constructors championship.
He's got pretty spicy this weekend.
Doesn't matter. George is not a Lewis Hamilton, a Fernando Alonso, a Max Verstappen, a Lando Norris. George ain't that.
I wouldn't even say Lando's up in that category.
No, Lando's like a sub below. I mean, but Lando and Piastri have led McLaren to a constructors championship.
That's true.
You think George is going to
Russell hasn't even been a part of one.
No. So like
Russell started in the zero pod era.
I mean, this is like, it's hard for me to say that, but I have very low expectations of Mercedes in the next several years. And anything above fourth in the constructors will come as a surprise to me.
Oh my gosh.
What are your expectations of Mercedes in the next couple of years?
In the next couple of years?
Yeah, because you have committed.
I think in 2026, I think my money's on Antonelli is all I'm saying.
Because you're sticking with Mercedes. You're not going to go to Ferrari, right?
I'm not going to Ferrari. I don't know why you're thinking that. If
I don't believe
anything,
it.
I'll go to McLaren, but I would never go to Ferrari.
Why? Why are you going to go to Ferrari? Your boy's there. And there's no one like your boy.
There's no one like him.
There's no one like him. Him and Red.
I'm with.
He's going to win one, and you're not going to go to Ferrari?
I was a Mercedes fan because I was a Lewis fan. And then Drive to Survive came out, and I became a Mercedes fan because I became a Toto fan. So until Toto leaves, I'm not leaving. I can't leave Mercedes.
Toto's going to be depressed for the next several years.
No way. I just listened to like a 2.5 hour podcast that he did with Dak Shepard, and it is incredible. The guy's a legend.
Oh, no, I mean, he is. He's phenomenal. I mean, he's in that stratosphere as well. Like,
yes.
As team principal, as, whatever his official title is. I mean,
and you look at him, you just look at him and you're like, dude, you're awesome. Like they did a graphic this weekend of Freddie Vasseur and Zach Brown standing back to back, just their big beer guts hanging out. And then you have like Toto on Drive to Survive just doing like 180-pound bench presses in the gym every morning. Like, I'm just like, dude, you're a freaking legend.
No, I mean,
speaks like 27 languages, lives in the high rise of the biggest building in Monaco. I mean, the guy's,
do you
came
think,
from nothing, dude.
Of course. Do you think he is going to lead Mercedes to another dominant season or dominant couple of years?
I think he looked at Red Bull and he said, I don't want to be in this position where I've got a dominant world champion and I've got a seat warmer who's giving me nothing. So I need to take a risk while I'm not up so that when I get back to the top, I've got the driver lineup that I want. I think what he's banking on is Antonelli will be his next Verstappen. It's a big risk he's taking.
It's a huge risk.
It's a big risk. And I love a big risk. So you already got me with that. And I think what he's hoping is that Russ will step up in this season. But if he doesn't, it's still Mercedes. There's no shortage of incredible drivers that you could do. You could see signs at Mercedes in a couple of years. Like you could see there are tons of incredible drivers that could go to Mercedes. You could see Max at Mercedes.
Well, that's been rumored.
The sky is the limit. And
fair enough.
Everyone forgets that Mercedes dominated this new V6 hybrid era because of primarily their engine. They had the best engine on the grid, and then they were able to design their car around the best engine.
Yeah.
Every other team that bought their engine had to design the car around their engine. Mercedes says, I can do this integrated because I know exactly what it needs to be.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm staying. All I have to say, I'm staying with Mercedes. As you can tell, I am 100%.
That's abundantly clear.
Mercedes.
Abundantly clear. Yeah, I mean,
the Germans know what they're doing, bro.
Yeah, they do. I mean, Mercedes, Toto, Hamilton. It's been a wild ride. They have went from dominance to kind of falling short, losing their way, trying to find their way back.
Right.
It will be an incredible comeback story if they are able to get to a point where they are once again competing for the title.
Yeah.
And it will be a long arc, several years, which is they've already experienced that.
I don't think it'll be several years. I think
it's already been several years.
It's been several years. Oh, I see.
I'm saying they're not
from
back
here on out.
No, I'm saying from when they first had it or when they last had it to when they will have it again.
Yeah.
It's quite the arc.
I think they will look back on this kind of era of car and they'll go, we never had it. They didn't have it this year. They said they found their North Star. They never did.
No.
And I think
just to keep the investors
they got to
happy.
take a gamble again next year because it's just not it's not a thing. And their cars again not been awesome. So we'll see what happens, but I think 2026 will either be their year or it will be more of what we're experiencing. And I really hope it's not more of what we're experiencing. I think they'll fight next year. I think they'll be up there for sure.
Yeah, we shall see.
Williams. Are we
going to Williams?
My goodness. Franco ends his last race yet again.
Yeah, DNF.
Out.
Another DNF. Albon in P11. My question for you brought this up before the show, and I'm just going to throw it out there and then ask a question. So you made a statement that Albon's kind of this perpetually P11 type kind of driver, which I think is like the worst place to be in. It's like finishing second. You know, you finish third, there's kind of like this, yes, I got on the podium. You finish second. If you're perpetually there, you're just like, you can't quite.
Just not good
You're
enough.
just not. And that's where Albon's been. It feels like there's such a great summary of him as a driver. What happens next season to Albon if Sainz comes in and is able to perform day one? Do you envision Sainz beating Albon next year?
Again, I think you can't underestimate Sainz coming in and needing some time to get adjusted to the team. I think what we will see is coming right around the summer break of 2025. We'll start to go, Sainz is consistently out-qualifying Albon. Oh, Sainz is consistently finishing above Albon. And if that happens, then Albon is done.
Yeah.
Because even though Williams is feeling the woes of their results at the moment, we're still going into 2026, which is what they, to their credit, have been banking on this whole time. They've basically been saying any of the results that we have up until now, like we're going to go for them, but we're we're rebuilding our entire organization because we're 10 years behind everybody for the 2026 season.
Yeah.
James has been very upfront about that. Like last season was a big surprise to them. And they took advantage of it. And they were like, let's go into it. This season was what they thought last season would be trash. Yeah. It was garbage.
Absolute trash.
And so if Sainz comes in and he starts putting it in, now you have a team that is doing better than people thought that it would. And you have a driver that is one of the most popular drivers on the grid.
Yeah.
And so with that comes sponsorship, and with that comes money, and with that comes clout, and with that comes desirability. And that is something that Mercedes is sorely missing. I mean, we're talking about a team that got sued by one of their sponsors.
Yeah.
Because they were performing so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think Sainz has the ability to come in. He's already had a phenomenal season this year with Ferrari. Come into Williams. It is a new team, a new environment. But I think you're right. I think if he comes in and he shows up Albon, who's been there for several seasons now, then I do think that there are more folks who are interested in that second seat.
Yeah.
Right now, no one.
No.
Like, Sainz is only there because like he couldn't get anywhere else. No. Freaking like Logan was there.
De Vries. Albon hasn't had a person to go up against him at his level really at all.
Yeah.
And so when he gets Sainz next to him, this will be the litmus test for whether or not Albon is as good as everybody says that he is.
Well, yeah.
Because
Sainz is better than Albon is.
Exactly. And so all that he has had to compare himself to in the car that is the same as his is people who haven't made the cut in Formula One.
Yep.
And even now, Colapinto.
Yeah.
Like, give Colapinto a full season, he'd probably be right up there with Albon. The only thing that Albon really has on him is F1 racecraft. And that's arguable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that'll be really interesting to see how he performs with someone who is not just his peer, but really someone who's better than him, and how he performs in the same car with someone who is a race winner. There goes our bottles. Someone who is just a better driver than he is. So
yeah, I agree. Williams, it'll be interesting to watch next year. It'll be pretty wild to see Sainz in that blue. That awful.
Yeah, I'm still sad about it.
Office building blue that they have as their color.
It's like, come on, guys, we can do better.
Am I going to the F1 race or a dentist's office? What are we doing? Having? It's a dentist blue.
Dentist
dude. It's
blue.
Like the same color as Scrubs.
At least like a navy blue or something, a dark blue. Come on.
It's not going to happen. Okay, we're jumping to Red Bull. Max is a penalty magnet.
Max.
What a fun first lap, though, thanks to Max.
Yeah.
What a fun first part of the race, really, thanks to Max. The rest of it got real dull, real boring, real quick.
Yeah. You know, do you think what Max did at turn 1 was necessary?
No, of course it wasn't necessary. And was I surprised? Yeah. No. It's also lap 1. Like, you're lying if you say you don't watch F1 for lap 1, turn 1.
You do.
Turn 2. You live for those first 3 corners.
Of course.
You know something crazy could go down.
Yes.
You're on the edge of your seat for the first 3 to 4 corners because you want, when the cars are all that close, jockeying for position, like someone that goes from P19 to P8 in 1 lap.
Unreal.
Like Leclerc, you're waiting for those moments. Those don't happen without risk, and risk doesn't happen without reward or despair. And Max caused despair. It just happened to be the poetic kind where you're in the drivers' championship clinch between Ferrari and McLaren. But let me ask you this question. What kind of a race would it have been if it was just Oscar and Lando P1 and P2 the whole time?
Well, it wouldn't have been any type of race because neither of those guys are going to race each other. It would have been team orders. It would have been Piastri protecting Lando's flank essentially the entire race. But here's my thing. You said you're not surprised by Max diving down like that. I'm actually surprised by him doing this.
I'm sorry. Pause, Ben. You just said you were surprised by Max diving down on somebody.
But
Max diving down the inside of somebody.
Let me clarify. Max has shown in past races that he can be incredibly patient. And he can, hang on a second, he can wait to do strategic overtakes. And he has shown, especially when he's further back in the grid and he's not at the front where he can just drive off into the sunset and drink his latte, he has shown that he can be patient and he doesn't put himself into a bad position on lap one. Multiple races he's done that. What surprised me isn't that he dived down. It surprised me that he did that at turn 1, lap 1. Maybe it's because he was like, what the hell? I already won. Doesn't matter. I'm going to try to see if I can get into P2 right away. Mm-hmm. But normally on lap 1, when he's in the mid-pack, he's actually quite patient.
Reserved.
He's reserved. And then he picks people off, and then he gets to the top. So I was surprised when he did it. That was what was surprising. Yes, because he normally doesn't do that. I want to say there was a couple races this season where he didn't qualify on top. And again, he's racing for the championship. He hadn't won it yet, obviously. And so he is like, hey, I'm not going to put myself at risk and like be rash here. Yeah. I'm going to like be more strategic. And so I was surprised that it was like turn 1. I was like, wait, what are you doing? This felt like just like a stab out of nowhere. So that was what was surprising.
I wasn't surprised because it's Max dive bombing someone on the inside. That's a Max Verstappen move. Now, I agree. There were times this year where he did not do that, and he did drive more reserved. The caveat to that, you said yourself, he had not won the championship yet. The guy's got nothing to lose. What does he has like almost zero damage that he's accumulated on his RB this year. Like the dude has nothing to lose. Yeah. So he sees an open gap and he goes,
why not?
Why not? This is fun. Let me spice this up a little bit. If anything, I feel like Max just trolled Piastri.
Yeah, you were saying that.
No, I didn't say that. Will said that. But I agree. I think it's like, he's just like, dude, I'm going to do this. It doesn't matter for me. Like, I finished this race. I'm still a world champion. I don't finish this race. Had the most dominant season ever last season. It's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised by it when it happened, but it was also like, I was surprised by it because it was like a dick move. Like, and again, there's part of me that's like, oh, well, this is just what these types of world champions do.
Right.
Doesn't matter if they just won. Every race, this is how they race, right? Yes. So in that sense, I'm not surprised by it. But like in that moment, I'm like, it took me back, and maybe I don't know Max the way that I think I do, or how he shows up into these spaces. But I was surprised by it. Checo. Let's go to Checo for a second.
Well, Checo.
You DNFs. I mean, if Bottas is, skidding into Mag was meta, Checo's DNF was such a statement for how this season has been. It couldn't have gone any worse. Last week was atrocious. This week somehow is worse. I mean, I don't think there's a future for Checo. I think he's done. But this was just, it felt like such a representative race for really how his entire season's been.
Yeah, I mean, Checo's done. Even he himself was saying things along the lines of like, we'll see what happens. We're going to meet. I have a contract, but it's what's best for the team. Horner's changed his tune in regards to that. That's kind of how I judge it. When Christian Horner changes his tune and he stops going, he's got a contract, he's our driver, he's done amazing things for us too. He's done amazing things for us. but we've got to look to the future and we've got to make sure that we make the right decisions for the team. I'm like, yo.
Oh, yeah, this has already been decided.
The writing is on the wall.
Yep.
You guys are done with this. So we'll apparently find out next week what they're going to do with their lineup. It's looking like Lawson's going to take, according to Will's getting a lot of airtime on this podcast this week. According to Will Buxton, it will be Max, obviously.
Clearly.
With Lawson, Yuki maintaining his seat at RB, and one of their F2 drivers coming up and taking over the other seat that Lawson vacates. You shake your head, and why?
I don't like that. I don't like Lawson next to Max. I don't think he's going to be able to hang with Max. I really don't. I think Red Bull risks another driver who cannot help deliver them a constructors championship again.
Yeah.
So when I think of Lawson, I'm like, I don't think he's proven himself in the way that they wanted him to, or proven himself in a way that he deserves the second Red Bull seat. Obviously, Checo had a pretty atrocious season, lost them the constructors championship. It's on him. It's on no one else. It's on him. But Lawson, I don't think he's the guy. I really don't. I mean, he's the
Can
image.
He survive Max's ego?
What?
Can he survive Max's ego? Can he? Ego's maybe not the right word. The vortex of performance anxiety that seems to surround Max Verstappen.
Well, because Max will get his way. The car will be his design, his car. The team will design it towards his specifications.
Which, in his defense, not because he's a bully, but because everything that they ask him to do and everything that they want him to do with his car setup makes him faster.
Yeah. So the team, of course, is going to be like, yeah, Max, whatever you want. It's making you faster.
Correct.
But the other drivers have not been able to maintain position or to be able to hang with that. I think Lawson, if he becomes a second Red Bull driver, is going to have to eat some serious humble pie, because he is not going to be this cocky dude who's going to walk in there and challenge Max.
No.
Max is the man. And Lawson has proven nothing yet.
Literally nothing.
So that's where I'm shaking my head. I'm like, dude, it'd be one thing if it's like an Antonelli situation where he's, this prospect, he's young for the future. Lawson, like, he's done some F1 racing already. Like there's already some, we've seen him. There isn't a lot of question marks around him yet. And he's not blown me away.
I think that's a really good way to put it. I would agree. There's nothing special about Lawson that would make me say, oh, he's going to rewrite the story for Red Bull.
Oh, absolutely not.
He is the next Gasly, the next Albon, this guy's done okay. He's doing good. So we're going to give him a chance. And then they just crumble under the pressure of Red Bull and Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
The team, they say it's different at the Red Bull team than it is at RB. And I'm sure it is, but there's about the same employee account. There's about the same engineer staff on a Sunday. Like, it's not that crazy of a difference.
Yeah.
The differentiator is the spotlight and your teammate.
I mean, who is able to hold it to Max?
No one has.
So at this point, it is 100% likely that whoever's in that seat cannot compete with him.
Exactly.
Just because he is such a outlier. And so whether it's Lawson, whether it's, Yuki, whether it's someone else, Max just has this way about him where, and it's not his fault. It's just who he is.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm probably going to regret saying this. I don't think there's anyone on the field that can be Max's teammate, that could beat Max. Not with how entrenched he is at Red Bull and how Red Bull, rightfully so, gives Max what he wants.
Yeah.
Because he has proven himself worthy.
He has.
Of every ounce of feedback.
Yeah.
Every adjustment. every change because he performs every time. What he's done with that car this season is nothing but legendary.
You heard it here.
I'm going to delete. I'll fix that in post.
No, please don't. No,
Aston Martin. We're moving on to Aston Martin.
I think I have
Alonso
one word.
P7. My goodness. I mean,
was he P7 or P9?
They secured 5th in the constructors, but it's not exactly champagne worthy.
No.
They went from hot to trot last season to kind of, is Aston still on the field?
Yeah, no, the one word that I have is unremarkable. They were P5 last year. They're P5 this year. They have a third of the points in the same position this year that they did last year. But last year was such a different energy. There was such a different vibe. There was excitement. They were getting podiums. Their car was holding it to Red Bull when no one else could in a way. And then this year, they still are in P5, and there has been nothing remarkable, nothing outstanding, nothing that makes me pause and say, oh my God. The most exciting thing is that Adrian Newey is going to Aston. Which
probably would take a while to take effect in him designing a car. It'll be mainly for 2026.
Yeah. But like that, the things that are happening off track are the most noteworthy things.
Agreed.
Which, if that's the case for any team, that's a problem.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I wrote something down that I think you will appreciate. I said Alonso is dragging his team on his back like LeBron with the Browns.
with the Cavs?
With the Cavs.
The Browns.
The Browns.
That'd be incredible if LeBron
Alonso is dragging his team on his back like LeBron in Cleveland.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
We talk about how we feel about Lance. My question is when does Alonso call out Lance's performance?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question.
He's very outspoken.
Yeah. No, I don't know if it's just the size of his contract or if it's a clause in his contract.
Ooh, I didn't think about that.
I mean, it very well might be that what he is allowed and not allowed to say. And that is pure speculation. I don't know. I mean, do you notice, and we talked about this, I think, briefly last time too, we and the F1 community were fine calling out Checo, but not fine in the same way calling out Lance.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's like, oh no, this guy's just a staple of the F1 grid, and we're not going to waste on-air energy saying he shouldn't be, because that'll never change. And that's what's so infuriating to
it should be the never-ending story. The Lance Stroll is the song that never ends. It goes on and on, my friends.
Yes, that's true.
Some people gave him a seat, and he's kept it ever since. And
vanilla, pure mediocrity.
And the problem is that with Cadillac coming in, I'm like, it only makes it easier for him to stay in a seat for even longer.
I don't ever see him getting the boot from
He's
Aston.
Confirmed now. He'll be here. He's not going to another racing. I think he's locked in for another period of time. He's just smug about it. I just think I can't take Aston seriously until they take their driver lineup seriously.
Yeah, because they don't take themselves seriously. So why should any of us?
No, exactly. If Sainz was driving for them next year, and they had Sainz and Fernando Alonso,
my God,
the Spanish duo,
and they've got Honda coming in, and they've got freaking Adrian Newey.
It would be insane.
Yeah,
but they're not.
Even if they got Checo, even if they said, "Hey, Checo,
come back home,
come back, let's go."
You won for us in pink.
Lance
come
is
here.
Like, hey, Lance, go do your thing. Go drive a different circuit. Yeah. I mean, it'd be incredible.
Do literally whatever you want else in the world.
I'd even be stoked if they had Checo or Sainz or someone, but they don't. So
no, I agree.
Or Colapinto, somebody.
Just just do something that makes people feel like there's blood in your veins again. I just get
so angry thinking about Aston's wasting all that money that they're dumping into new facilities, dumping into having Adrian Newey there, I'm telling you, McLaren is the model. They're the pilot here. Everyone needs to follow. Guess what? You need 2 really good drivers.
Yes.
And if you don't have them, you're not going to win the constructors.
Yeah.
Full stop.
It's so funny you say that. So I had a friend and he rode his bicycle from Oregon to the California border of Mexico. Nice. And he literally did it with his bike and a backpack. And
love that.
He camped or stayed in hotels, whatever, right? And he was obsessive over his bike. He bought the lightest bike. He bought the lightest pedals, the lightest everything. Everything had to be like the lightest tent, the lightest backpack, lightest clothes, all of it.
Yeah.
And he was like 250 pounds. And at the end of it, he was like, I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on buying the lightest components, and all I had to do was go on a diet, and it would have made way more of a difference than the 0.8 grams I saved on picking these pedals. Wow. And that's what I think of when that made me think of that when I thought of Aston Martin. You get all of the money.
Yeah.
You get the best Formula One car designer in the history of Formula One.
Yeah.
But if you just changed your freaking driver, you'd actually be competitive. And that's the end of Aston Martin. On to Haas. Haas has been the biggest surprise.
Haas.
The American team. Now, I just want to go give all of them nice big hugs and love on their necks.
I know. This was a disappointing weekend. We had the fight at the front between McLaren and Ferrari, but we had the fight in the midfield between Alpine and Haas. And Haas had
you told me Alpine wasn't going to be in the midfield.
Just so angry whenever I think about Alpine. But I think I paid you. No, I paid you for the other.
You paid me for the gig.
Oh God, I'm not going to pay you for that too. To pay for so many things. But no, Haas had the opportunity, and they had a blisteringly fast car.
Yes.
Where did that come from this weekend? And like freaking Hulk qualifies in 4th, and then he gets a 3-place grid penalty, which is a bummer. But in 4th, and their car was fast all weekend. And they had the opportunity to hunt down Alpine. At the end of the day, fell short, weren't able to do it. So they lose out on P6.
They ended P7.
Still a huge jump from last year.
It's huge. It's freaking Haas we're talking about here.
3-place
jump. They came with a brand new team principal in We're talking about the team that showed up in budget Ford Ecolines with parts of their car last year. Like, this is a team that at multiple points in time, we never knew if they were going to make it to the next weekend.
No.
It was put together and held together with gum and duct tape.
It was just chaos and Gunther Steiner.
Just cussing out everybody left and right.
Everything.
And now they had come into this season with a brand new team principal who just says, we're going to be the worst this year. This is my first year as a team principal. We're going to be terrible. We're changing everything. We're adjusting everything. And they end P7.
I mean, that's incredible.
$30 million more than they expected to make this season.
Yeah.
Like, Gene's got to be going, I made the right choice.
Yeah. He finally gets some kind of return on his investment. Years of investment. No, I mean, Haas, they overperformed this season. I mean, Hulk really, we've talked about him at length, but incredible. Mag obviously is transitioning from the sport, but Hulk was phenomenal this year. I think my one question on the Haas bit is, do you feel like Haas is going to progress next season, or do you think they're going to decline? They got two new drivers. We talked about the importance of drivers.
Yeah.
Now they've got Bear, they've got Ocon, but what are your thoughts as far as next season for Haas?
It's a really good question. I'm so glad you asked, Ben. I think they'll stay exactly where they are. I don't think they will progress, and I don't think they will regress. I don't think that Williams is going to leap them.
No.
And I don't think that Sauber is going to be anywhere next year.
Nope.
I think it will be a tight battle between the bottom 4, because I don't think Alpine's going to make a monstrous jump. I think what Haas will do is they'll stick with their strategy. The thing that they have going for them now is that they have momentum from this season.
Oh, absolutely.
They do have new drivers, which are going to be great.
Yeah.
And they have new sponsors, like real sponsors. Toyota is on the back of their rear wing.
Yeah.
Like, that's very different to have Toyota as your sponsor versus Chipotle. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something very different about what's happening down there. And their strategy is less like what I felt like they used to be was like playing darts blindfolded. Like, sometimes you'll hit the mark.
Yeah.
Most of the time you weren't. And now they're just very calculated.
Yep.
They're almost risk averse. No, we're not going to throw everything at the car. We're going to do one part at a time. And because they can be.
Yeah.
Like, Ferrari couldn't do that. And that's why we had Spain. Because they were in the fight and they go, no, we got to make a big swing. So let's swing big. And they missed.
Yep.
Their left hook did not hit. It did not connect. It got blocked. And Haas is like, we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We told everyone we were going to be P11.
Yeah. Yeah. They set expectations and then exceeded those expectations by being stable. The one thing they've not been stable ever. Love Gunther Steiner. Like, he was there this weekend. Teddy was talking to him. Love him. He is not a stable force at all. And so Haas all of a sudden has become cool, calm, and collective. And they've just, I think of Haas as kind of like, the parable of the tortoise and the hare. They're just kind of tortoise. They're like, hey, we're not going to be fast this year. We're not going to be great. But they just kept going. Mm-hmm. And they just kept with their plan, and they just kept their kind of cool head. They didn't get crazy. And now they're, significantly up from where they were, more money, more sponsors. Again, new drivers, but drivers who, Behrman scored points.
Behrman scored lots of points.
Ocon has won a race. I mean, again, I have my own thoughts about Ocon, but like, I think that they actually have some drivers who can score, who can win. And if they can just keep this momentum, I do think it'll be really hard for them to beat. They're not going to get close to Aston next year, because I think with Adrian, like, we will start to see some of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And they will firmly block any kind of forward movement. I think Alpine somehow figured it out towards the end of the season, and they'll start pulling it together.
They'll build upon that.
But I think it will be Haas and Alpine really kind of duking it out next season. I think that those are going to be the two teams that are going to be really kind of going for it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's gonna be wild. I'm super proud to call them an American team this year, though. I gotta be honest.
For the first time.
I've loved it. I contemplated getting some Haas gear. I changed my mind immediately, but I contemplated it. Let's jump into the last team. It was Alpine. Pierre Gasly drove a smart race.
Yeah.
P5. I mean, I don't know what he is eating.
Something changed.
Like, his last, six races have been awesome.
Yeah, no, he's literally, so since Austin, for qualifying, he has been in Q3.
Incredible.
He has been 5 out of 7 races.
Yes.
Like, something has shifted, because before that was not the case. He had been in Q3 like 3 times across like 10 races. As far as race results, he has just turned the switch. Yeah, he has scored in 4 of the last 6 races. Whereas before that, he did not score in the last 5 races. So Gasly and the team just turned a corner. right when it mattered.
Yeah.
To lock out 6th place, which again is midfield. You called it. I refuse to believe it because I wanted, Haas to lock it down, but they just turned it on.
It's not that I want it to be right. It's just Alpine's curse. They're not bad enough to be at the back of the field, and they're not good enough to be at the top of the field. So they just hang out
in the middle.
Go back years and years and years, and you'll find faithful old Alpine or Renault right smack dab in the middle. I guess with Jack Doohan joining, having his debut race in F1 this weekend, he said in a post interview, he was like, I have muscles that I didn't even know existed. He's like, driving. I couldn't even have to he's like, I've got to try to figure out how to work out my thumb because I couldn't figure out under the G-force how to get my thumb over to press the right buttons.
Oh my God.
Insane level of stuff. I thought that was really cool because you don't really hear a lot of the young drivers. They mainly talk about their neck or whatever.
Yeah,
he's like, no, there's multiple things.
Yeah, I can't imagine
that we're doing. I guess my question here is, are they rebuilding or are they just broke?
That's a great question. Well, if they're going to stay where they're going to stay, this season to me kind of felt like it didn't really matter,
right?
If they're rebuilding or they're broke, because they're just going to stay where they're at. Gasly turned it on, so Gasly, I think, could change that for them moving forward in next year, because obviously he's going to still be their lead driver.
100%.
Jack is a new driver, but if they're not going to be in a position to catch Aston or any of the teams above them, and if Williams and Kick and Visa Cash App are going to be where they're going to be, I mean, I don't know if it really matters. They could get worse next year, but I think they turned it around.
Right.
And I think they actually figured something out. I think they found something to build on. So, I'd love if there could, in some world, be like a 3-way battle between Haas, Aston, and Alpine. What a thought.
That would be fire.
Would that be incredible? And that might be possible because Aston is, continuing to hold on to Lance, and Alpine figured it out, and Haas has figured it out. So I think they're going to move forward. And I think Gasly, we've talked about him, in the last couple episodes. He's shown his stuff.
Yeah.
And I think he's continuing to mature as a driver. And if they genuinely figure it out and have a North Star, I think there's a possibility that they're moving forward next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I was looking and thinking back on the upgrades they brought in Austin and Gasly. I feel like Gasly's entering kind of the same thing that we saw Sainz do this year. Sainz, I think we forget that he found out that he didn't have a Formula One seat for 2025 before the season began.
Yes, he did.
That's crazy. That means that he had to motivate himself the entire season.
Oh,
that is a massive mental strain that guy had to do on his.
It was a job interview
himself.
The entire season.
The entire season,
he deserved a seat.
He's writing his resume and doing interviews, and also running for president. It's insane what he was doing. And Gasly is kind of that grit, that determination, that self-motivation. Okay, the guy started the season in a car that was aerodynamically equivalent to a school bus. And it was the same power unit as an F2 car. It was woeful, the cards that he got dealt at the beginning of the season. They changed the car. He stuck in there, and he kept going out weekend after weekend after weekend, and he put the work in.
Yeah, and Gasly's someone like Sainz who understand what it's like to be booted from a team.
Yeah.
And so that is a painful experience, and I think he's someone who has internalized that. He's learned from that, and there's a depth
100%
to him as a driver where there's, and I love kind of the cocky young drivers coming in doing their thing, but there's something about someone who's got some depth and who can navigate the landscape.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope Gasly's able to see more podiums. He's able to see
100%.
more points. And again, he's been turning it on the last of the season. So yeah, I think he has an opportunity to lead Alpine in a way that, they haven't been led in a while.
100%. I completely agree with you. What a close to the 2024 season, Ben.
God, it's over.
It's over.
What a long season.
Can we not end on triple headers moving forward?
I know.
I'm kidding.
For our family's sake.
My goodness. It has been a wild 24 races. I mean, we were talking about it. I can't believe people. Hats off to all the mechanics, to everybody that worked the 2024 season. Y'all live a wild life. And we're so thankful because we get to partake in all of it from our underwear on the couch.
Living rooms.
It's so good. My predictions for the 2025 season is that Mercedes will win the championship.
No.
Norris will come last. And Verstappen will DNF every weekend.
It's good that you're always wrong.
Yeah.
It's good that I'm always wrong too. No, I think we're looking forward to fantastic racing next year. Hard to say where we're going to be at, who's going to be leading. I think we can assume Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, Mercedes will be in the mix at the top of it. But we've got incredible teams at the back who are clawing their way into the midfield and into contention. Exactly. It's going to be incredible.
It's the last year of these current regulations. And unlike the last year of the previous regulations, we are not going in with two teams that are ultimately dominant.
Yes.
We entered into the last regulation change season with Mercedes and Red Bull, and that was it. No one else could really hold a candle.
No.
And this year we've seen it's like throwing the dice up in the air and seeing where they fall. Any given weekend, it could be anyone. And going into next year, I feel like it's only going to get even spicier.
Yeah.
98 days, friends, till the next race. Actually, not even the race. It's still like testing in February.
Yeah.
Even further until the race on March, I think 14th or 16th or 17th or whatever.
Yeah, it's been great. Well, thank you to all those who have hung out with us this season.
Yeah.
Listening, sending us comments on social media. It's been fantastic.
Good, bad, ugly.
All the things. We love it.
Second season of Formula One rolling start.
We're here for it.
Here's for a third. Have an amazing time. I don't know what to say now. This is the end of the season.
It's the end of the season. The Christmas holidays upon us.
I almost said have a good night, but it's like, what if they listen to this during the day? Have a good night. In case I don't catch you, good night, good evening, and the Truman Show. Okay, end this, please. God.
See you, folks.